You know those moments in life where everything's going perfectly fine and then, boom, something totally out of left field flips your whole world upside down? That's exactly what happened to me. There I was, enjoying a quiet Sunday morning, sipping my coffee, thinking everything was right in the world. That is, until I stepped outside to find her car. Again, blocking my driveway. Not just any car, though. A brand new, shining Porsche. And it wasn't the first time. In fact, it had happened so many times, I started to think I was living in some weird, twisted version of Groundhog Day. You might be wondering, how could someone be so entitled? Trust me, I ask myself that every single day. But here's the kicker. She wasn't some random stranger. This was my neighbor, a Karen through and through. And she wasn't apologizing. Oh no. In fact, every time I politely asked her to move, I got an earful about how her Porsche deserved to be where it was. What was I supposed to do, just live with it? Absolutely not. But here's the twist. What I did next? It might just blow your mind. So stick around. Because what began as a simple inconvenience turned into something much bigger. Something that changed everything. And let's just say, by the end of it all, I wasn't the one stuck in the driveway. Let me set the scene for you. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood. One of those places where everyone knows everyone, and you can almost hear the crickets at night. My driveway is long enough for 2 cars, but only if I can actually use it. Now, Karen, my lovely neighbor, decided she could park wherever she liked. And I mean wherever she liked. At first, it seemed like an honest mistake. She had a guest over. The car was only there for a few minutes, nothing major. I thought, okay, I'll just be polite and ask her to move. So I did. I knocked on her door, gave my best friendly neighbor smile, and explained that her Porsche was blocking my driveway. Her response? Oh, I'll move it in a bit. I'm just getting ready to leave. It won't be long. Simple enough, right? But when I checked again an hour later, guess what? It was still there. And it wasn't just once. It was happening every time. The Porsche would show up, blocking my driveway, and I'd have to wait for her to graciously move it. The worst part? Every time I politely asked, I got the same smug response. I'm busy, can't you just wait? And to make matters worse, her garage was empty. She had the space. But no. Her Porsche needed to be there. Every time. And it didn't stop there. Slowly, things began to escalate. Small signs at first. Sarcastic comments when I'd pass by her house. Little jabs about how I wasn't exactly a model neighbor. It was becoming clear she wasn't about to change her behavior anytime soon. She was untouchable, like a queen in her kingdom. But that was just the beginning. By now I was starting to get really fed up. I tried talking to her HOA. No help. I thought, maybe if I keep asking politely she'll get the hint. Big mistake. The next time I knocked on her door, Karen answered with a cold smile. Oh, you again. What's the problem this time? I pointed to the Porsche. It's blocking my driveway, Karen. She sighed dramatically. I told you last time, I'm in a rush. You'll have to deal with it for a little longer. And then, just for fun, she tossed in, maybe you should have bought a house with a bigger driveway, huh? That stung. But it wasn't the end of it. A week later, she had the audacity to start leaving the car there for days at a time, with no regard for the fact that I couldn't park. I started getting annoyed, pacing around in frustration. And to make things even worse, every time I left for work, I had to wait for her to move the car. I felt trapped in my own driveway. Then, things got a bit darker. One afternoon, I came home to find a strange piece of paper stuck to my front door. It was a fine. A parking violation ticket. I thought, surely not. This is some mistake. But nope, it was real. My street had a no parking on driveways policy, and apparently, my neighbor had reported me for leaving my own driveway blocked with non-movable vehicles. I was furious. It was the last straw. I couldn't let this slide anymore. I was done being polite, done trying to reason with her. It was time to take matters into my own hands. That night, I laid in bed, eyes wide open, thinking about how to outsmart her. I knew I had to do something bold. Something that would show Karen that I wasn't going to be her doormat any longer. I'm not one for rash decisions, but at that moment, I knew I had to get creative. And what better way to get back at someone who thinks they can ignore all the rules than by creating my own set of rules? So, I started planning. The first step? A toll booth. Not a real one, obviously, but something that would make her think twice about blocking my driveway again. It wasn't just about parking, it was about power. I was tired of feeling like I had none. I found some cardboard, some old wooden planks, and began building a makeshift toll booth at the end of my driveway. I even found a small guard sign I could tape to a pole. The idea was simple. If she wanted to park in front of my house, she'd have to pay the price. Literally. I even found an old guard uniform at a thrift shop and hired my cousin, who was out of work and needed the cash, to stand there as the toll booth guard. I could see it now. Karen's Porsche pulling up only to be greeted by a sign that read, "Pay to park, $10 per minute." I couldn't help but laugh at the image in my mind. It was genius. The day came. I watched from my window, holding my breath. Karen drove up just like clockwork. She saw the booth, stopped, and gave me the most confused look I'd ever seen. But that didn't last long. "What is this?" she called out, rolling down her window. "I'm not paying for this." I gave her a smug smile and pointed to the guard. "You're blocking my driveway. If you want to park here, you pay the toll." She froze, looked at me, and then looked at my cousin in his uniform. The tension was thick in the air. The standoff lasted for a solid 10 minutes. She argued. I stood my ground. Her Porsche was still blocking my driveway, and I wasn't about to back down. At some point, she tried to drive around, but there was no way around the booth. It was strategically placed to block the entire road. Finally, Karen got out of the car, visibly seething. "You think you can control me with this nonsense?" she snapped. I nodded calmly. "No, I think I can control where you park." She didn't take it well. But that was the beauty of it. The power had shifted. The community started to take notice. Neighbors gathered around, watching the showdown unfold. Karen's Porsche was still parked, and the best part? The HOA sent a letter a few days later about the parking situation, demanding she follow the rules. It wasn't just about the toll booth. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could run over everyone else. It felt good. And for once, I didn't feel like the victim. I was the one calling the shots. So, what's the takeaway from all this? Sometimes, when life hands you an unfair situation, you can either complain, or you can come up with a creative, slightly ridiculous, but incredibly effective solution. Sure, building a toll booth was a bit over the top, but it worked. And in the end, Karen never blocked my driveway again. What would you have done in my shoes? I'm curious. Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you made it to the end, comment, "Justice served," because let's be real, we all love a good comeback story. Remember, when you're dealing with someone who thinks they can get away with anything, don't just sit back, be creative, stand up for yourself. Because the best stories, they're the ones where the little guy wins.